This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
G7 leaders make pledges to donate coronavirus vaccines to poorer nations. Calm restored in Somalia's capital after clashes and gunfire amid protests over election delay. And in Nigeria, anxious wait as security agencies begin operation to rescue 27 kidnapped students. Hello and thank you for joining us on Africa Live. I am Peninah Karibe, and joining me with a sneak peek of what's coming up in business news is Uche.
Thank you, Peninah. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. Lawyers in Ghana who want public servants that willfully cause financial loss to taxpayers to be punished. And the International Monetary Fund calls on Nigeria to cut its oil dependence and push economic reforms. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, back to you, Peninah.
Thank you, Uche. We begin in Somalia, where clashes erupted Friday in the Somali capital, Mogadishu, after forces loyal to opposition politicians clashed with government troops. The opposition had called for protests over delayed elections. Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Robles says his administration will not tolerate armed protests. The opposition is accusing the government of using violence to suppress peaceful protests. The clashes took place in two areas. The first took place near the presidential palace around a hotel housing two former presidents. The second occurred near the country's international airport. Armed guards clashed with security forces, resulting in damage to property inside the Mogadishu airport compound. Restaurants were reportedly hit by rocket-propelled grenades. It is not clear who fired the country's biggest transit hub. The airport also houses African Union and United Nations headquarters, as well as bases for foreign diplomatic missions. Calm had been restored by Friday afternoon. Security agencies in Nigeria have begun an operation to rescue 27 students who were abducted at a school in the north-central Niger state. Nigeria's police chief Mohammed Adamu says special units of the police have been deployed to the area to rescue the students. Deji Badmas has that story.
Bandits stormed the school in Kagara, killing one of the students and forcefully taking 27 along with them. There's been no words from the bandits so far. Nigerian authorities say at least 5 different police units have now been deployed to track down the kidnappers and rescue the students alive.
We are also in contact with our partners, our cooperating partners within the communities and other security agencies. And I also assure you that we'll get them released. The strategy we use in getting the previous ones out on hot, we are reinforcing that same strategy.
The federal government will apply everything at its disposal, both kinetic and non-kinetic, reconciliatory measures to get all the students back safely. I want to assure you that President Muhammadu Buhari, as far as is concerned, is resolved, he is determined to apply whatever it takes to make Nigeria safe and secure.
The governor of the state ordered boarding schools in the area and surrounding areas shut. He's also confirmed that talks are ongoing with the bandits to release the students.
It is my hope, it is my prayer that within the next few hours or days, they should be back home. Because a lot has been done. I cannot give you details of what is being done, but a lot has been done. So I think we're reaching the final stages.
Meanwhile, in Parliament, senators have condemned the attack. They've asked President Muhammadu Buhari to declare a state of emergency on insecurity in the country.
What else do we need to do as lawmakers that we are not doing? Can we rightly say that this government, I am sorry to say, that this government is incompetent in handling the security challenges in this country?
The attack on the school comes less than 3 months after a similar attack on another boarding school in the northwestern state of Katsina, where 300 schoolboys were abducted. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Agara, North Central Nigeria.
The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says it will negotiate with South Africa to purchase its doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. South Africa acquired 1 million doses of the vaccine, but has now switched to Johnson & Johnson over efficacy concerns. CGTN's Coletta Wanjohi reports from Addis Ababa.
The African Union says South Africa's AstraZeneca doses will not go to waste. It comes as South Africa paused its rollout of the jab after data suggested that it was less effective against the 501YV2 variant of COVID-19. It says they are the same vaccines as the 100 million doses that the continent will start to receive from the Serum Institute of India from around April.
We are learning how this virus behaves. We are learning how these vaccines behave vis-a-vis the new strains, and we continue to use a very cautionary approach to this. It has nothing to do with safety. I mean, if I was offered an AstraZeneca vaccine today, I would take it, okay, very, very quickly. So I just don't want the population to get confused that something is wrong with the AstraZeneca vaccine. No.
The World Health Organization hopes that a global risk monitoring framework it has formed will intensify its research on mutations of the COVID-19 virus and better guide on vaccine usage.
In general, what we're seeing across a number of the vaccines, so that includes the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the Novavax vaccine, and the AstraZeneca vaccine, in the B1351, the variant first identified in South Africa, is that there is a lower efficacy than was demonstrated in other parts of the world where that variant wasn't circulating.
In the meantime, African countries are continuing to order for vaccines through the African Union Medical Platform. The Africa CDC says 26 states have met the 15th February deadline, placing orders of about 180 million doses. The Afreximbank will now begin financing the purchase of AstraZeneca doses from the Serum Institute of India. Coletta Wanjohi for CGTN in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson opened the Group of 7 virtual leaders meeting on Friday by calling for a plan to rebuild the global economy after the ravages of the COVID-19 pandemic. The UK has pledged to donate surplus coronavirus vaccine doses to developing countries. Such vaccine pledges have also been made by other leaders, including French President Emmanuel Macron. Our reporter Nicole Johnston has been following the G7 virtual summit. She joins us live from London. Nicole, as was expected, big pledges coming from the G7 leaders on coronavirus vaccines. Give us the details.
Well, these countries have been under a great deal of pressure, especially from the United Nations, on the issue of vaccine nationalism. They've been accused, in effect, of essentially hogging vaccine. The UN has said that 10 countries essentially have 75% of the world's administered vaccines, and that 130 countries so far don't have any vaccine. So to that end, the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said that the UK will donate any unused vaccine to other countries, and around half of that will go through the international body COVAX. Now, we don't know how much it will be or when that will happen, so a lot of unanswered questions. And as you said, this happens just after the French President, Emmanuel Macron, said that Europe should be donating 5% of its vaccine to Africa.
So, Nicole, other than COVID-19, what else was discussed by the G7?
Essentially, this meeting really does appear to have been focused on coronavirus and the economic impact of it. Having said that, it was also a big opportunity for the new US President Joe Biden to re-engage with the international community and with his European counterparts in particular. It's not only the G7 meeting that's underway, but also the Munich Security Conference. So it's a big sort of day for international meetings. Now, we're expecting that the US President will focus partly on China and its economic competition, as well as on Iran and potentially rejoining the Iran nuclear deal and trying to get Iran back to the table. But really the big focus was on COVID-19 and trying to come up with some kind of mechanism to vaccinate not only their own national populations, but the entire world. Because as the German Chancellor Angela Merkel said, until everyone is vaccinated, no one is safe.
Nicole Johnson live in London. Thank you, Nicole. Beijing says it hopes G7 nations a message of unity instead of division. China's foreign ministry has also responded to the plan announced by G7 leaders to discuss what they describe as challenges posed by China.
We hope relevant countries can bear in mind that people across the world want unity instead of division. We have always opposed using multilateralism or multilateral cooperation as an excuse to force the rules made by few countries on the international community. We oppose in particular the use of multilateralism for ideological purposes and creating an alliance against a certain country because of its ideology. We hope relevant parties can uphold openness and inclusiveness and keep up cooperation so that we work together to cope with the various grave and urgent challenges that the world faces right now.
A new survey reveals that 2/3 of South Africa's adult population is willing to take a COVID-19 vaccine. The country this week started to administer the first doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. CGTN's Yolisa Njamela has more details on the survey.
The survey by the University of Johannesburg and the Human Sciences Research Council, or HSRC, used about 11,000 participants. The two entities utilized social media adverts to drive potential participants to the survey.
The survey, amongst other things, found that at least 67% of the population would definitely or probably take the vaccine, while 18% of the adult population would definitely or probably not take the vaccine. Findings were weighed by race, education, and age, and were broadly representative of the population at large. According to UJ and HSRC, the survey results demonstrate that race, education, and age play a role in shaping vaccine acceptance.
Overwhelmingly, people, whatever race, whatever income group, whatever level of education, they want the vaccine. And this is really the number one problem that faces us. Where are those vaccines going to come from? How are we going to make sure that people who want the vaccines and who know the vaccine is good for themselves and for society, how do they get them? That's really what we have to worry about most.
The most common reasons given by those who want to vaccinate is to protect themselves against the COVID-19 virus, while those who said they would not take the vaccine or were unsure cited worries about the effectiveness of the vaccine and or possible side effects.
In terms of the reasons that people give for being hesitant, a lot of it is not having enough information and not being sure and being given hearing different arguments from different people. So there are issues of transparency here, and we know that transparency can relate to trust. And within civil society, there are a lot of calls for there to be increased transparency in what the government is doing.
There were qualified responses which said that I would take the vaccine once I've seen the president taking the vaccine, or they should be given to politicians or should be given to leaders of society. So given that we've seen that, one can speculate that it will make a difference and it will encourage respondents to take the vaccine, or South Africans to take the vaccine.
The Human Sciences Research Council of South Africa is Africa's largest social science and humanities research agency and policy think tank.
The survey also recommended a vaccine literacy campaign that provides factual information to sway those who remain uncertain. Yolisa Njamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Nigeria has authorized the use of Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine in the country. This comes just days after the World Health Organization listed the vaccine as safe for emergency use. The country has been evaluating 3 other vaccines alongside 30 herbal remedies that have been proposed by various companies.
The emergency use listing will allow Nigeria to receive the first batch of the vaccine from COVAX facility within weeks, subject to approval by NAFDAC. And the announcement we are making today, this morning, is that NAFDAC has approved the COVID-19 AstraZeneca vaccine for emergency use authorization. COVAX is also poised to ensure that 92 eligible low-middle income countries get access to COVID-19 vaccines through Gavi. Nigeria is one of the eligible countries.
It's 15 minutes into the hour. You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a short break. Coming up. South African women flock gun ranges for shooting lessons to keep criminals at bay.
No one again, he can hold in guns. Machine guns from police forces towards the protesters.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
Thank you very much for your time. What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has been hosting Libya's new interim Prime Minister Abdelhamid Deiba in Cairo. Deiba's visit is seen as a breakthrough in ties between Egypt and Western Libyan politicians. Here's Adel Mahri with more on the significance of the meeting.
Influential nations in the Libyan crisis have endorsed the new executive authority. Among the first was Libya's eastern neighbor, Egypt, which the new Prime Minister Abdelhamid Deiba chose for his first international visit.
This visit shows that the new authority in Libya is aware about Cairo's capability to assist in the next diplomatic and political process and support Libya in all aspects. Cairo, on the other hand, is proving that it's supporting Libya's unity and the road to the general election and ending foreign intervention in that process.
The civil war in Libya has been between factions from the western region against their rivals from the east. Egypt has been supporting the Libyan National Army and the elected parliament. Both are eastern entities. Prime Minister Deiba, however, is from the west. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's meeting with Deiba is the first sign that ties with the upcoming interim cabinet in Libya could be better than with his predecessor Faiz al-Sarraj.
Egypt is a heavyweight in the Middle East. It has good relations with almost all international powers, and internally it is in good terms with the LNA and the parliament in the east. If he gets Cairo's support, that can help him in many areas that are of concern to his government, like fighting terrorism, political unity in Libya, and most importantly, economic recovery.
The Egyptian president and the Libyan prime minister have agreed to cooperate on restoring security and stability in Libya. Both leaders discussed the efforts needed to complete the next transitional phase that should lead to general elections in December. It's maybe too early to determine the future of relations between Cairo and Tripoli, but Deiba's first visit to Cairo indicates that both parties are willing to start a new page in their ties. Adel Mahri, CGTN, Cairo.
Dozens of South African women are training near Johannesburg on how to use guns as a means of personal protection. South Africa has one of the highest crime rates in the world. Its rate of femicide is reportedly 5 times higher than the global average. Femicide is the international or intentional killing of women and girls because they are female. CGTN's Olisa Jamela visited a gun range to witness how women are now arming themselves for protection.
Gender-based violence continues to increase here in South Africa. In fact, it dramatically increased after government declared the national state of disaster in order to deal with the spread of the coronavirus. And now some women are turning to guns to protect themselves. Many have joined Girls on Fire. It's an initiative that was started by Lynette Oxley in Johannesburg.
So we teach people to be responsibly armed, to look after themselves, to train on a regular basis and make sure that they go through the right processes to attain firearms, and on a regular basis train with that firearm so that they do not go into a situation where they can't use the firearms effectively.
Since its inception in 2015, Girls on Fire has seen thousands of women learn how to responsibly use handguns. Other areas of focus include gun law, situational awareness, and concealment.
I think more women is actually coming through as gun owners. I think there's a lot of women actually working in the gun area. And if you look at the worldwide trend in gun ownership, the largest growing market is in firearms are actually women. And I think the trend is starting to happen in South Africa as well. We also then, another thing that we go through is concealed carry, where women can actually effectively conceal their firearms and carry on them. So we look at in terms of the Firearms Control Act, the firearm has to be under your effective control, it's got to be on your body. So we look at different options for ladies to conceal the firearm.
Many women who join Girls on Fire to receive training on gun use say it's empowering.
Well, for me, my thought is I'm well trained. I know where to store my firearm. I know how to use it and when to use it. And that is what the training entails. For me, kids and firearms, I'm very careful around that. Safety is very important, because if you are not using the firearm in a safe environment or don't know the safety around the firearm, a lot of people could get hurt. And you need to know the safety around using a firearm.
About 3 million South Africans have licensed guns. Yudisa Njamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Children account for about 75% of trafficking victims detected in Nigeria and other parts of West Africa. That's according to a 2020 global report on human trafficking by the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam reports on the situation in Nigeria.
17-year-old Mercy's been a victim of human trafficking. Her full identity is concealed for her safety. She was just 14 when she was shipped to Saudi Arabia with the promise of a job, an opportunity to help her family out of abject poverty. But instead, she was sold into slavery and faced untold hardship and brutality in the hands of her masters.
When he saw me immediately, he said, this is the kind of lady we want to, that me, I'm very young. They call me slave, that we are slave. They feel like millions of naira on our head. When he was beating me, he bring out a knife. Look at this knife, that is going to kill me with this knife. I was very scared. So at that time, anything he say I should do, I would just do.
After 3 months and a failing health, Mercy was sent out of her master's home and left to die. Though luckier than many who don't survive, she's now a shadow of her former self.
My strength is not like before. Before I can walk, but now, when I came back from sickness from another, I've been sick. My mom have been wasting money, spending money for my treatment. I cannot stay in a place that I will stay alone, like there's darkness, because if I stay there, I will start screaming.
Nigeria is a country of origin, transit and destination for traffickers. Data from the UN Office on Drug and Crime, UNODC, indicated that about 75% of victims are children.
There is a strong link between trafficking of children and the economic situation of a country and its income. The more the country is part of the low-income countries categories, the higher the share of children will be. In Nigeria, we see different forms of exploitation, and we see also an impact actually of COVID-19 on these forms.
Nigerian authorities say that they'll continue to ramp up efforts to combat human trafficking.
There's a lot of government intervention from all ministries to empower the vulnerable from the grassroots. And also, there's review and validation of the National Policy on Protection and Assistance of Trafficked Persons in Nigeria. And right now, we're coming up with a national action plan to help interventions in the areas of human trafficking.
Despite the widespread menace of human trafficking, conviction of traffickers remains low in Nigeria and West Africa. Many are calling for the strengthening of a legal framework to prosecute offenders and for more severe sentencing for those found guilty. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
In Zimbabwe, children living on the streets have been significantly impacted by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Anti-pandemic measures have led to emptier streets, meaning fewer handouts that many depend on for survival. Volunteer groups have also halted feeding schemes for fear of catching the virus. The government of Zimbabwe has since stepped up efforts to protect children in vulnerable situations during the pandemic. The country's Department of Social Welfare estimates that there could be over 15,000 children living on the streets.
I'm afraid of COVID, but there's nothing much I can do about it. To be fair, it was my desire to be part of a functional family going through the lockdown at a proper home. I see many individuals passing by coming from their different homes. I really do wish that was me, pursuing an education like any other child of my age.
The government has also taken opportunity of this period to try and remove these children from the streets, or to round them up and put them in centers where they can then screen them and see who are those that are genuine children working and living on the streets, or who are those that have traceable families or relatives. Then they can then start processes of reunifying those children.
Time now to catch up with the day's business news, and for the very latest, we cross over to Uche.
Thank you, Peninah. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. Lawyers in Ghana want public servants that willfully cause financial loss to taxpayers punished. And the International Monetary Fund calls on Nigeria to cut its oil dependence and push economic reforms.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN. Well, let's start off in Ghana, where lawyers want authorities to enforce a law that punishes government officials who are linked to projects that lead to financial loss for the state. The call comes after the International Court of Arbitration ordered the government to pay more than $130 million to an energy firm, Ghana Power Generation Company, for terminating an agreement to produce electricity for the country. Here's CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai with more.
Ghana faced a power crisis between 2012 and 2016. While the power cuts crushed many businesses and the economy, the government struck deals with energy companies to produce electricity for the country. One such deal involved an emergency power project with Ghana Power Generation Company, signed in 2015. The agreement was cancelled in 2018, resulting in a court ordering Ghana to pay more than $130 million to the energy company. Some lawyers say the government could have avoided this through negotiations and want those responsible to be punished.
If people are culpable, take them on.
Because some of these things lead to private gain, okay, and then public loss. That's why we have the law against willfully causing financial loss. If somebody acted willfully in this regard, and it has caused this country financial loss, we should take that person on.
Ghana is now producing excess power. The government said it cancelled a deal with Ghana Power Generation Company to reduce its debts in the energy sector. While some experts say the country can sell its surplus power to neighboring West African countries, others think that may not tackle the situation entirely.
We are the most expensive in the West African sub-region. And if we are the most expensive, yes, we'll be able to supply to other countries, but the quantum that we would want to supply may not be that much because we are in excess, because we are expensive. Ideally, if we had a plan which is linked to industrialization, as we are building industrialization, we are consuming electricity.
Meanwhile, Ghana's debt owed to independent power producers is rising as the country struggles to pay its bills at a time when the economy is reeling under the COVID-19 pandemic. Many people are concerned that the government will have to use taxpayers' money to pay the energy companies for cancelling the deal. They want the government to consider renegotiating the deal. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
And in Nigeria, the International Monetary Fund has called on the country to devise ways to ramp up its economy, beginning with cutting its oil dependence. That is the outcome of the Washington-based lender's 2020 Article 4 staff consultation to Nigeria. The review shows that the country's recovery from recession may be slow. Here's CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam reporting from Abuja.
Nigeria has been grappling with the devastating impact of the coronavirus. Its economy has been on a decline since real GDP contracted by 3.2% in 2020, fueled by the falling oil prices and COVID-19 lockdown. The West African nation depends on crude oil for nearly 90% of its export revenue, and much of that has been cut off. Now the IMF is encouraging Nigeria to focus on economic reforms that support sustainable revenue generation. But it won't be a walk in the park for a country like Nigeria, with several factors limiting its growth.
Our institutions are different, our cultures, our environment, our realities are different. If we're a little more ingenious, the IMF will have little reason to make these recommendations to us. In the past, we have seen how they have recommended structural adjustment policy in the era of the military, and we saw how that plundered us into an economic tailspin, how our exchange rate spiraled downwards, resulting in our inability to compete very well in the international market and affecting our balance of trade overall.
In suggesting what they're suggesting, they are not putting into consideration that we have heavy security issues that we're struggling with. They are not also looking at the situation that we have a lot of nepotism going on in the country and so much corruption.
Issues like double-digit inflation and falling per capita income continue to threaten Nigeria's growth, and government's buffers haven't had significant impact on the shocks from the pandemic.
It is also worsened by the level of insecurity that has been existing in the country, which has affected virtually everything in the country. The insecurity is been worse ever that we have ever experienced, and so it's affecting agricultural production, it is affecting movements of goods and services, it's affecting movement of human beings, and so to that extent, the economy is suffering.
IMF projects that Nigeria's recovery might be very slow under the current policies. Real GDP growth in 2021 is expected to hit a positive 1.5% and recover to its pre-pandemic level only in 2022. Such policies entail huge public debt service payments that leave limited fiscal room for crucial social and infrastructural spending.
We keep hearing stories, or we keep reading reports about government trying to pay attention to some of these things, creating infrastructure fund. We see the central bank now and again releasing funds to commercial banks, to fund the agricultural sector. We see, all kinds of schemes being developed by government to fund entrepreneurs. All these are salutary, but something tells me, or like we do know, something tells me that most of the time some of these funds are diverted. The problem is the diversion. In terms of policy formulation and policy direction, we can hardly fault government.
Economic watchers say government's diversification efforts will spur economic recovery. That and strategic policy adjustment reforms which would help navigate the economic downturn towards an upward trajectory. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Meanwhile, Ethiopia is defending restrictions placed on the country's telecoms bidding process. The government is looking to invite 2 new telecoms companies to enter the Ethiopian market. A third firm will partner with the state-owned Ethio Telecom, which currently enjoys a monopoly in the country. Here's CGTN's Coletta Wanjohi reporting from Addis Ababa.
For decades, Ethiopians have lacked the power of choice when it comes to communication providers. But later this year, that is set to change. So far, 12 foreign companies are eyeing the country's telecom sector. The government says the new entrants can use existing infrastructure. Critics say that limitation makes the offering less attractive to bidders.
If you look at it strictly in business sense, if you are assured that the new entrants and the incumbent would have equal access to this infrastructure and that there would be fair pricing and that the ECA can regulate this properly, of course, you would want to put in more money into infrastructure when one is already available. So, and also as a country, I think it makes sense to make sure the billions that we've spent into this is put into meaningful use.
But despite the invitation of new players, Ethio Telecom will get a monopoly on lucrative mobile money services. The World Bank, which is supporting the process, says Ethio Telecom should receive less preferential treatment to allow for more competition. It warns that restricting bidders to existing infrastructure could easily slow down the pace of network rollout, especially in rural areas. Some analysts have called for the government to go further. They argue that other sectors like banking should be opened up alongside telecoms.
We've made significant reforms in the economy. One area that we've not opened up as of now is the banking sector. So the banking sector, as we speak today, is close to foreign investment. But would it be the same in 2 years, in 6 years down the road? I don't know, but I have my doubts because the kind of reform we make depends on what the economy needed. At this point, we felt the financial sector reform needs to pass through different stages of reform before we fully open up the financial sector.
The World Bank is investing $200 million in the telecoms opening process. That money will go towards strengthening the telecoms regulator and boosting the country's digital economy, which is still in its infancy. Coletta Wanjohi, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
And Côte d'Ivoire lost 116,000 acres of forest in its cocoa growing regions in 2020. According to the government, the world's top cocoa producer has lost more than 85% of its forest cover since 1960, mainly due to cocoa farming, despite industry pledges to halt deforestation. Now, Mighty Earth, a US-based environmental group, has said that the area deforested last year showed some improvement from 2015, when about 148,000 acres were being destroyed annually. Major chocolate companies and industry leaders in the country, alongside the government of Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana, pledged in 2017 to eliminate the production and sourcing of cocoa from protected forests and national parks. And moving on, a major immigration overhaul in the U.S. has been unveiled by the White House. The bill shortens the path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants and more. Well, Nathan King looks at whether the plan is likely to face an uphill battle in Congress.
Yes, with the backing of the Biden White House, Democrats on Capitol Hill unveiling an ambitious immigration bill. It's 180 degrees from the Trump White House, who of course focused on building a border wall, restricting immigration and separation of families and aggressive expulsions by immigration services. There will be some security at the border, but it's not going to be in forms of a wall, more about introducing new technologies. But really where this focus of the bill lies is a pathway to citizenship for 11 million undocumented immigrants without papers here, of course focusing on the so-called dreamers, that is undocumented people here who arrived illegally as children, also farm workers who pay taxes, of course, and others who have fled wars, and others as asylum seekers and refugees, but without papers as well. It's ambitious, but Democrats who really want to push this bill say it's important to recognise the contribution of immigrants and make them fully a choice to become American citizens. So take a listen.
Our system is broken. We have 11 million undocumented people living, working, and raising families in our communities without legal status. These are good and decent people who believe in the promise of America down to their bones. They did not come here for handouts. They came here for hard work. And that's exactly what they do each and every day.
Now, the big question is, will this pass? As you know, a very divided Capitol Hill. The Republicans won't like all this bill, but of course the Democrats have a slim majority in the House of Representatives, a 50-50 Senate with Kamala Harris, the Vice President, able to pass a casting vote. But of course there's this filibuster thing where you need 60 votes in the Senate to pass something. There's talk of reforming that. Will immigration be the straw that breaks the camel's back on this one? We don't know. Well, we know that immigration, though, has really troubled other presidents. Barack Obama found it very difficult to pass something. George W. Bush thought that he was going to get the right balance between security at the border and a pathway to citizenship. 8 senators, called the Gang of 8, really nearly came close, but that collapsed. In fact, there hasn't been significant immigration reform in the US since the 1980s, when Ronald Reagan basically gave an amnesty for about 3 million people on a pathway to citizenship. It's a divisive issue. It's going to be an ambitious goal. It's happening within its first 100 days of the Biden presidency, showing that this is a key concern of those, despite other priorities like COVID. We'll wait and see. Nathan King, CGTN, at the White House.
Now, Winnie Mandela, fondly known to South Africans as the mother of the nation, was an iconic hero of the struggle against apartheid. Now, it's just over 2 years since she died, and activists across the world have been trying to keep her legacy alive with various initiatives. One such project involves a beautiful commemorative blanket. Here's CGTN Sumitra Naidu with the story.
Winnie Mandela was loved by millions of South Africans. Even though she courted a fair amount of controversy, Mandela was a true freedom fighter. She spent 491 days behind bars during apartheid rule in South Africa. Tunes Botha of Kingsday Textiles wanted to create something that would remind people of her bravery.
It's almost like energy has called us to that, to commemorate and honor this incredible woman. And the best way that I could ever think of, that will make sure, as our slogan says, Mama Winnie forever in our homes and hearts, is to put an image that is a symbol not just of Mama Winnie and her principles and what she stands for.
After meeting Mandela back in 2015, Botha began creating a blanket to remind people of her warmth and devotion to her community. Mandela was the first black medical social worker at the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. She shared a particular concern for young women.
Mama Winnie always very specifically said to me that she was very concerned about the female youth in particular.
A blanket is significant in African culture. It is often used in traditional ceremonies, and in some cultures, women must wrap themselves in blankets after someone has died.
It's a beautiful thing that Mama left. She lived a very difficult life. And, you know, as a woman, they say you strike a woman, you strike a rock. So she is the epitome of that. She had to be there to make sure that a possibility of a democratic country where everybody lived as one people, not seeing any race, any color, where we see women are also realized in the space of business, in the space of politics, in the space of the community.
The blankets are manufactured in China. Each one comes with a certificate and a unique number to authenticate the purchase. The picture printed on the blanket is taken from her book titled 491 Days alongside her prison number. Sumitra Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And that's all for now on Africa Live Biz, but coming up later on Global Business Africa, South Sudan has introduced a new note of 1,000 Sudanese pounds. This is as the country struggles with hyperinflation. Well, we'll be talking to the new central bank governor and analyzing the impact of the move on the country. All that coming up top of the hour. For now, back to Peninah.
Thank you, Uche. You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead. Serving it hot when Nigerians love red hot pepper in their food.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Let's head to Nigeria, where pepper is a staple ingredient in most local dishes, from rice meals to soups and stews. The spicy feel of pepper appeals to many across the nation, and locals say it is one way of burning calories and resolving other health issues. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam takes us through the experience of a Nigerian hot pepper meal.
Red, hot, and sizzling in the pot. That's the famous stew from western Nigeria. Pepper is a major ingredient in this dish, as with most Nigerian local cuisines. And this kitchen in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, makes sure to treat their customers to a delight of peppery meals.
Some customers do come, they will say, I want the hottest pepper. And there are some that will say they want it moderate. And into that all is because of pepper that they used to come to eat.
Enjoy my food without pepper though. It becomes tasteless without pepper. You know, it gives it the flavor, the taste. That was my love for pepper.
Pepper was used as a food preservative in warm climates like Nigeria. This staple ingredient is very accessible and affordable too. There's quite a variety of pepper in Nigeria, from the mild to the extremely hot. And depending on the dish and desired spice, more than one type can be combined. Besides the taste, many believe the health benefits are enormous.
That pepper, the food is nutty. You just see the food as if you are just giving them a poison. Because if you eat with pepper, all your system will open. Your system will open, both the throat, the hair, the nose, everything. You even feel, you will not feel as if you are want to throw away the food.
When you are growing up, without even taking pepper, you have dull brain. But when you started taking that pepper, you build up with your brain will be sharp. So we can't everything about Nigerian that we love pepper, and that is why we are sharp in Nigeria.
Nigerian pepper isn't for the faint-hearted, but for those brave enough to allow their taste buds to be ignited by the fiery sensation of a peppery meal. And that could either be a delightful experience, or it could send a grown man tearing like a child. But for many Nigerians, a meal is incomplete without pepper. Bon appetit.
And ahead in sports news. Uganda's games at the ongoing 2021 FIBA AfroBasket qualifiers postponed due to positive COVID-19 tests in their delegations.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
We begin with basketball news. Uganda's second leg games at the FIBA AfroBasket 2021 qualifiers in Tunisia have been postponed after some team members tested positive for COVID-19.